Good morning. Welcome to Freeway Bible Study. It's the 3rd day of July 2018, and I'm your host. My name's Kurt. I don't believe that God exists, but it's fun to study and to have some understanding of the stories. So, that's what I do every day, Monday through Friday, in the morning and then a little bit in the evening to prepare. So today we're continuing with Exodus, would be book 2 of the Bible, and in particular we're on Exodus chapter 4. And in this chapter, we continue to listen in on the conversation between God, Yahweh, and Moses, as God basically prepares Moses to return to Egypt to petition Pharaoh to release the children of Israel. So right off the bat, this is basically just continuing from chapter 3. Right off the bat, with this conversation, Moses says, "But what if they don't believe me? I get to Egypt, like you say, and you tell me I need to go see the Israeli elders first and tell them your words and show them the magic tricks that you taught me with the staff and the leprosy in the hand and the blood, the water turned to blood. If I show them those tricks and they say, these are just, this is nothing, this is no proof that you actually are under mandate from God and God actually spoke to you, what then?" No. This is before he learns the tricks. I got that backwards. So he says, remember in chapter 3, God was telling him, just go there and tell the elders that you're here sent by me and you're going to release the people and that'll be good. And now Moses says, well, what if they don't believe me? And now God's going to teach him the tricks. So sorry, I had that backwards. So I got this now. So God says, okay, here's the first thing you're going to do. You're not going to believe me. What's that in your hand, Moses? And Moses looks at his hand and it says, it's a staff, a rod. And God says, okay, toss it down on the ground. So Moses throws it down on the ground and it immediately turns into a snake and starts slithering away. And Moses jumps back. Now God says, okay, now go catch up with the snake, grab it by the end of its tail, but isn't a snake all tail? Yeah. And as soon as he does so, it turns back into a staff. Pretty neat trick. Now, I did a little research and it turns out that this is actually a bit of a parlor trick for Egypt, where somehow Egyptian magicians would train snakes and also crocodiles, even small crocodiles, to go stiff as a board, like a rigor mortis or something. And they could then pick up the snake and it would stand out straight. Now, how in the world do you teach a snake to do that, or let alone a crocodile to do that? Beats me. But apparently that was a well-known trick in ancient Egypt. So I found that interesting that God would actually teach Moses what is essentially a parlor trick for the Egyptians. Because when he gets there, it's going to be like, okay, God speaks to some guy and says, okay, I want you to go to New York City to proclaim my word on the corner of the streets. And the guy says, but what if they don't believe me? He says, God says, well, I'm going to teach you a trick. Here, get three cups and a ball and a little table, and I'm going to teach you how to play hide the ball. And then they'll believe you. It's like everybody in New York City knows that trick. No one's going to be interested in that. The one difference was the Egyptian trick involved turning a staff into a snake. No, turning a snake into a staff. Moses' trick began with turning a snake into a staff. So it kind of mixes it up and then back again, right? So maybe that'll impress him. Because in the Egyptian's trick, it's still a snake. It's just stiff like a staff. But the Moses' trick apparently will really turn it from one to the other. So I guess that's kind of building upon the trick that exists. Hey, I think we figured it out, right? I mean, he's one up in them, right? I mean, what if the ball and the cup trick, could actually, under the cup, was something that you didn't expect, that couldn't possibly be there. Like, oh, I don't know, like your thumb. And so you lift the cup up and there's your thumb. And you look down at your hand and your thumb's gone. It's, ah! And then you put the cup back over and your thumb reappears. Okay, I don't know. You get what I mean. You're like doing something pretty astounding with an old trick that everybody knows, but that you've really one-upped it. So maybe that's what Moses and God are up to. So okay, so God teaches Moses the snake to staff to snake trick. And then Moses is like, well, what if they don't believe that? You know, there's a lot of whiners in this line of Abraham, don't they? Doesn't it seem like we always run across these guys from Abraham to Jacob to Isaac, you know, all these guys that are always complaining to God, you know, they're not going to believe me, you know, who am I? I mean, I shouldn't, I'm not teasing them necessarily. I do the same thing if I thought voices in my head were telling me to go someplace and liberate the slaves, and, you know, under penalty of death for, you know, disobeying the pharaoh, and under death penalty from pharaoh anyway, I would complain that no one's going to believe me. So the next moment God says, okay, well, if they don't like that, then how about this? Put your hand in your cloak. And Moses puts his hand in his cloak, and then God says, pull it out. And when he pulls it out, it's covered with the flakes or the sores of some sort of an affliction, which the Bible references as leprosy, but can't possibly be leprosy because leprosy didn't arrive in North Africa until thousands of years after that. So it was probably just the word leprosy is used as a generic catch-all. Probably some sort of a skin ailment. The white color might be flaking skin, perhaps. We don't know just what it was, but something was wrong with his hand. Pretty gross. And then he puts the hand back in and it's cured. So that's the second trip. And Moses says, but what if they still don't believe me? And God's like, okay, now go I want you to, if they still don't believe you, go get some water from the Nile, pour it upon the ground, and I'll turn it into blood. Now that's pretty neat. So now Moses is armed with 3 tricks, and I guess he's front loaded with these tricks because he can pull them off anytime he wants, because he's going to use these same tricks to convince the Egyptian. Wow, that guy's just oblivious. To convince the Egyptian, the Israelite. Sorry, the guy in the car just was changing lanes without any consideration of what's going on around him. So it wasn't close. He kept some distance, but I'm sure my bike surprised him when I overtook him. So anyway, so now he's armed with those 3 tricks, and now Moses goes on to say, well, but I'm not a very good talker. Now you can almost hear the exasperation in God's voice. He's like, okay, well, who is it that gives man his voice, or takes it away, or causes one to be lame or healed again, or all these things? It's me, the Lord, and I'm going to be with you, and I will tell you the words you need to say, and I will help you with your mouth. So it's basically what God's saying. He's going to be there for him. And it's then that Moses still is not happy. I think, is that right then? Yeah, I think it's then, and he complains again, and then finally God kind of gives up and says, okay, you know your brother Aaron. Well, guess what? He's on his way to see you right now, which is kind of a lie because he hadn't yet told Aaron to go. He's going to tell Aaron next. So Aaron's on his way to see you, and Aaron's a pretty good talker, huh? He's pretty smooth with the words. So here's the deal. You will tell Aaron what to say, and Aaron will use his eloquence to speak it out. So I'll help you with the words that you tell Aaron, and I'll help Aaron with the mouth, which he'll use to communicate to the Israelite elders and Pharaoh himself. Sounds like a pretty good deal. So good. So now Moses goes back to Jethro, his father-in-law, and asks him if he can go back to Egypt to see his family. He doesn't tell Jethro his real intent. And Jethro says, sure, yeah, go ahead, be well. So Moses grabs his wife and his sons, now it's plural, I guess we don't know how many or if he has any daughters, puts them on an ass, apparently just one. So that's all, it's at least 3 people on an ass, and I don't know what Moses is riding. And off they go. Now on the way, they stay at an inn, and while they're at the inn, suddenly God appears and is coming at Moses with anger and an intent to kill. This kind of, in the reading of the Bible, it kind of comes out of the blue all of a sudden. It's like, where did this come from? And Zipporah, Moses' clever wife, grabs a sharp rock. She's standing there with one of her sons, who is uncircumcised, and she reaches over, grabs his hoo-hoo, and cuts off the foreskin, circumcising her son right there on the spot, and then runs over and rubs that bloody skin, the Bible says, against Moses' feet, but I learned that feet is a euphemism in Hebrew for genitals. So he rubs it all over Moses' groin area, saying, "A bloody husband you have become." And she says it twice, "and a bloody husband you are because of the circumcision." And this act appears to make God happy, and Yahweh, calls off the attack. Pretty cool how she was able to do that in such short order. Where did she get that idea? Did God plant that seed in her head? God seems to be doing a lot of that. So then, why all of this? Well, you remember that way back, Moses, I think it's Exodus 1, Moses killed the cruel Egyptian slave master who was beating one of the Hebrew slaves, and then buried the body, and then was found out, and that's why he had to leave Egypt in the first place. Well, apparently, and he had gone away to Hebron to basically find sanctuary. Remember, there's this concept in the Hebrew culture of sanctuary cities. Even though God hasn't identified any sanctuary cities yet, that'll come later in the Bible. The concept is in there. And while he's in Hebron by the mountain of God, Moses is protected from those who would want to kill him, from Pharaoh and others. And he's also protected from God's wrath, apparently. But as soon as he leaves the mountain and starts departing back towards Egypt, that's when God takes it upon himself to wreak vengeance for the killing of the Egyptian. Because there's no one left who can do it. Because God tells Moses that everyone who wanted to kill you in Egypt is now dead. So now the slate is clean. The slate is wiped clean. So somehow circumcising your son, or circumcising anybody for that matter, I guess, or yourself, is sufficient atonement for sin, all the way up to and including murder or killing, however you want to define it. So now the way is cleared, and off he goes. And on the way he runs into Aaron. Guess who? Because Aaron, God, just before he had his encounter at the inn with Moses, God went to Aaron and told him, "Hey, your brother, he's out there in Hebron, he's on his way back to Egypt, why don't you hit the road and go out and meet him? I got a mission for you guys." Well, he doesn't say that last part, but... And so Aaron encounters Moses, they hug each other, Moses explains what they've got to do, Aaron is down with it, he's going to be the spokesman, the number 2 guy. Moses is going to be God's right-hand man, and he will be to Aaron a stand-in for God, and Moses and Aaron will be to the Israelite elders and to Pharaoh a stand-in for Moses' mouth. Get it? From God to Moses to Aaron to the people and Pharaoh. So now they continue on and they make their way finally back to Egypt, and they meet the Israelite elders, and they explain what God has said. Then Moses does his magic tricks, and they believe him. And the people are so happy, the Israelites are so happy to realize that God has remembered them and he's aware of their affliction. And this chapter ends with fervent prayers from the Israelites to God, worship to God. And that's the end of that chapter. Is there anything else I wanted to say? I mentioned about that. There was something about, I think I'm forgetting something about the... oh yeah, the name. Right, that's it. I did a little research on the name. Remember God was calling himself, and I think it was Exodus 2 maybe? He was saying, it was Exodus 3. He was telling Moses, if the people doubt that you spoke to God, just tell them that you spoke to I am who I am, or just I am. And I was like, what the heck? Why would God refer to himself in such a funny way? So I did some research, and it turns out that this is an Egyptian superstition of sorts. That the superstition is that if a god reveals, if someone can guess or gain the real name of a god, they can acquire some of that god's powers. And so Yahweh is deliberately, masking his true identity in order to preserve his powers. And he's behaving like an Egyptian god. And he slowly, but at the same time, the name that he's giving, this again in keeping with Egyptian tradition, tells us something about the god. Let's say maybe if the god was a water god, then something about the name that he or she would use to describe themselves would have something to do with water or something, or god of air have something to do with air. You kind of get what I mean. The words would be a word play of sorts. It's kind of telling you a little bit about yourself, about the god. So this I am who I am is basically saying, no, I am a real god. I really do exist. And so, but he doesn't tell him what his real name is. And he doesn't tell him what his real name is in Exodus 4 either, but he's slowly beginning to reveal and give Moses some power. He's almost like, what is the word? Commissioning him with some powers. Like, I think that these 3 magic tricks that he taught him, I think that Moses will be able to perform them on command anytime he needs to, when he wants to bolster what he's saying, which is a pretty neat thing. But he doesn't know God's true name yet. Just I don't know if he ever will. We'll find out. So that's it. I'm going to leave it at that. And thank you all for joining me. Have a great day and see you tomorrow. Make it a good life. Bye bye.